warm welcome to all my students. Today we will study about public finance and budget. In this chapter we will learn about the meaning of public finance and its importance, budget, public expenditure and public income, deficit finance and fiscal deficit. So these are the topics will be discussed in this chapter. The management of income, expenditure, debt of an individual is called as a personal finance. In the same manner, the government has to manage its income and expenditure, the study of which is called as public finance. Now, let me give you an example. We will talk about an individual. An individual earns his income by working in agriculture, industrial or service activity. Our individual is earning his income a form of a rent, wages, working as a laborer in various economic sectors. So in these way they are getting their income. And this income an individual is spending for his day-to-day activity, and also saves his money for future. Therefore, he has to balance between the income and expenditure. When it becomes difficult to balance between the income and expenditure, he borrows the money, which we call it as debt. So when we are talking about an individual's income, expenditure and debt, we call it as personal finance. Same way, when the government spends the money and borrows the debt, we call it as public finance. So when we talk about the government managing its income, expenditure and debt, is called as public finance. So when you talk about an individual's income, expenditure and debt, is called as personal finance. When you talk about the income and the expenditure of the government, we call it as public finance. So in this chapter you will learn about how do government manage its finance activities. Meaning of public finance. Public finance deals with how a government raises revenue to meet its expenditure. As Delton says, public finance is concerned with income and expenditure of public authorities and with the adjustment of one to the other. So according to the definition of Delton, public finance means concern with income and expenditure of public authority. Here when we talk about public authority, we are talking about the government who is trying to adjust of one to other. Public finance studies that way in which the government manages its income, expenditure and loan. So we are going to study in this chapter regarding how does government get the income, for what purpose they are spending the money, how do they get the loan. Importance of public finance. The government's activities of mobilizing revenue, incurring expenditure, and raising loans are part of its fiscal policy. Fiscal policy means Fiscal policy is the use of government revenue, collections, and expenditure to influence a country's economy. The objective of fiscal policy are to achieve economic growth, maintain economic stability, it's concerned with price, and achieve a fair distribution of income. The government tries to mobilize revenue, expenditure, and raises a loan will be the part of fiscal policy. And the main objective of a fiscal policy is economic growth, maintaining economic stability, and achieving a fair distribution of income. These are the three objectives of fiscal policy. First one, economic growth, economic stability, distribution of income. The government usually spends the revenue collected through taxes or the money raised through borrowings for development activities. This increases the growth rate of the economy and benefits everyone. Similarly, by spending more during recession and controlling expenditure during inflation, the government tries to regulate the economy activities. Since all these are a part of the annual budget prepared by the government, the study of public finance also helps in analysis and evaluation of budget. The government usually spends the money which it is collected through tax and also raises the money, that means borrows the money for the development activities. The main reason it spends the money and borrows the money for the growth rate of economy as well as to benefit everyone. It spends its money during the time of recession. It's tried to control expenditure during the time of inflation. These are the two problems in economy. One is recession and the other one is inflation. During the period of recession, the government tries to spend more. And during the inflation time, the government tries to control expenditure. And since all these will be the part of annual budget prepared by the government, the study of public finance also helps in analysis and evaluation of budgets. Budget. The government prepares and presents budget every year. In India, the financial year starts from April 1st and ends on 31st March of the subsequent year. Budget for the next financial year is prepared during the current year itself and placed in the Parliament for its approval. Through this budget, the government tries to achieve the objective of growth, stability, and redistribution. The government prepares and presents budget every year, and the financial year starts from April 1st and ends on 31st March. And every year the government prepares the budget, and the budget for the next year is prepared in the present year. And the government prepares a budget mainly for growth, stability and redistribution. That means the main objective of a budget is for economic growth, stability and redistribution. What is budget? What is a budget? The statement of estimated income and expenditure of a year prepared by the government is called budget. The statement of estimated income and expenditure of a year prepared by the government is called the budget. The budget is prepared by central government as well as the state government. The central government and the state governments prepare their own budget. Normally, the finance minister presents the central budget in Lok Sabha in February or March. So remember, the budget is presented by the finance minister in Lok Sabha in the month of March or February. There will be a detailed discussion on the budget in both the House of Parliament. When you say both the House of Parliament means Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha. And the government obtains the approval of both the House before 31st March. Remember, budget is presented by the finance minister in Lok Sabha in the month of February or March. And there will be a discussion regarding the budget in both the House, that is Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha. And the approval of both the House should be given before 31st March. There are three types of budget. Budgets can be of three types. So remember, there are three types of budget. First one, surplus, deficit and balanced budget. Remember, three types of budget: surplus, deficit and balanced budgets. So remember, the definition of these three budget is connected with revenue and expenditure. See, the first one regarding surplus budget. If the budget shows excess revenue as compared to the expenditure, it is called surplus budget. When revenue is more and expenditure is less, we call it as surplus budget. If the expenditure is more than the revenue, it is called deficit budget. So remember, here the expenditure is more and revenue is less. If both income and expenditure are equal, it is called a balanced budget. So remember, three types of budgets are there: surplus, deficit and balanced. In surplus, revenue will be more, expenditure is less. In deficit, expenditure is more and revenue is less. And in balanced budget, both will be equal. Now let us see which type of budget do India adopt. In developing countries like India, the governments normally prepare deficit budget and try to spend more to achieve economic progress. That means India is adopting deficit budget. Deficit budget means where expenditure is more and revenue is less. Why do India follow deficit budget is the main intention of government is to achieve economic progress, to have more economic development in our country. That is the reason why we follow deficit budget. The Financial Minister Nirmala Sitharaman presents the budget in Lok Sabha. Now we learned about public finance. Now we will learn about public expenditure. The expenditure incurred by the public authorities like central, state and local government to satisfy the collective social wants of the people is known as public expenditure. It is incurred on various activity for the welfare of the people and also for economic development, especially in developing country. The expenditure incurred by the public authority. When you say public authority means central government, state government, local governments. Remember, public authority means central government, state government and local governments. And mainly they spend the money to satisfy the collective social wants of the people. It is incurred on various activity for the welfare of the people and also for the economic development. And this is mainly followed in developing country. In the 20th century, the role and the scope of the government has expanded and public expenditure also increased. In the 20th century, the role and the scope of the governments has expanded. The public expenditure also increased. Public expenditure has to create and maintain conditions conducive to economic development. It has to improve the climate for investment. It should provide incentives to save, invest and innovate. It should also help in acceleration of economic growth and economic stability. So in the 20th century, the role of the government has increased. At the same time, public expenditure also increased. Public expenditure has to create and maintain conditions conducive to economic development. So they have to spend the money for the economic development of the country. And also they have to improve in such a way that they start investing the money. It should provide incentives, that is to encourage for saving, investment and being innovative. It should also help in acceleration of economic growth and ensures economic stability. The goal of public expenditure are promote faster economic development, promote industry, trade and commerce, promote agricultural and rural development, promote balanced regional growth, build socio-economic overheads, example, road, railway, dam, etc. Promote full employment and the last one, maximize social welfare. What is the main aim of public expenditure? That is the goal of the government. So now we will see what are the goals of public expenditure. Their main intention is to promote economic development, to develop industry, trade and commerce, and encourages agriculture and rural development, and they try to maintain a balanced regional growth, build socio-economic overheads, promote full employment, maximize social welfare. So remember, economic development, industry and trade and commerce development, agriculture and rural development, balanced regional growth, build socio-economic, full employment and maximize social welfare. So these are the goal of public expenditure. For these purpose only governments spend their money. Next we will learn about public revenue. Public revenue is the income mobilized by the government for purpose of financing the government's activity. Public revenue may be realized from taxation or from non-tax sources such as revenue from government-owned corporations, public wealth funds, grants, etc. Due to the rising income and also due to increasing requirements of the governments, the amount of revenue raised is also increasing. Along with the classification of function, the Constitution has also specified the source of revenue of central government and the state government. We are learning about public revenue. Public revenue means is the income mobilized by the government for purposes of financing the government activities. Main intention is for the government's activities, financing the government activities. Public revenue may be released from taxation or from non-tax sources such as revenue from government-owned corporations means the company, public wealth funds and grants. Due to raising income and also due to increasing requirement of the government, the amount of revenue raised is also increasing. As the requirement of the government is increasing, due to that there is also raise in revenue, that is tax. The central government collects its income from various sources. These sources can be classified under two heads as revenue and capital receipt. The central government collects its income from various sources and these sources can be classified under two heads, revenue and capital receipt. In this chapter we will be only learning about central government's income and expenditure. So under central government collects its income from various sources. These sources can be classified under two heads as revenue and capital receipt. So first we will learn about revenue receipt. The revenue generated by the government through tax and non-tax sources is called revenue receipt. That means a tax generated by the government, the revenue generated by the government through tax and non-tax sources is called revenue receipt. Revenue receipt comprise revenue from tax and non-tax sources. Tax revenue. Tax is described a compulsory payment by the citizens to the government without expecting any direct benefit in return. The central government imposes several types of tax. Tax are the major source of revenue for the government. The government imposes high rate of taxes on high income group and lower rate of taxes on low income group. Tax is described as compulsory payment by the citizens, that is, by the people of the country to the government, without expecting any direct benefit in return. And there are several types of tax, and tax is a major source of revenue for the government, and the government imposes tax on the government imposes higher rate of tax on high income group and lower rate of tax on low income group. The poor are exempted from income tax. Similarly, a higher tax is imposed on luxury goods and service. The poor are exempted from income tax. Similarly, a higher tax is imposed on luxury goods and service used by the rich and a lower tax on goods and service used by the common people. This is called as progressive taxation. First remember, poor people are exempted from the income tax, and tax are high on the luxury goods and service, which are mainly used by the rich people, and lower tax is implemented on the goods and service which is used by common people. So first thing is, poor people are exempted from the tax, and the rich people who uses luxury goods and service, on that there are higher tax. Whereas the goods which are used by the common people, the tax is low. So this sort of a policy we call it as progressive taxation. Thank you, children. The remaining topic will be explained in the next session. Thank you, children.